Malzahar, prophet of the void. Beneath the glare of the Shuriman sun, there have always been those blessed with the power of foresight. The only son of aging trinket peddlers, Malzahar did not realize his gift until his parents had already succumbed to a wasting sickness, leaving the young, traumatized boy to fend for himself on the city streets of Amakra. He read fortunes in the gutter for a coin or scraps of bread. As his auguries proved more and more accurate, his reputation grew. He used his second sight to predict who a curious cameleer might marry, or where throwing daggers would land in games of chance at the bazaar. Soon he began to receive patrons dressed not in dirtied sandals, but jeweled slippers. However, for all this, Malzahar could never see his own destiny. His future was hidden. Increasingly disillusioned with his success, he noted the common disparities of wealth and witnessed those unhappy with their lives acting out in spiteful violence against one another. It was apparent to him that people were bound up in a never-ending cycle of pain, often of their own making, and no hopeful prophecy seemed able to break it. Malzahar himself soon felt nothing but a sense of emptiness. Finally relinquishing his mortal possessions and leaving Amakra for good. For years he roamed the land, from the trackless wastes of the Lesser Sai to the ruins of old Shurima. By distancing himself from others, he was alone with his thoughts at last. He divined not just how callous people could be, but also how corrupt the world might yet become. Feverish visions began to plague his waking hours, along with otherworldly whispers of war and strife and endless suffering. He wandered far until the sands turned to salt. He could not know that he had arrived in Acacia, a lost city ravaged in the wars of a bygone age. There, gazing into the depths of a ragged abyss, Malzahar opened his unsteady mind, desperate for understanding, and the void answered. That would have been the end of any other tale, and yet somehow Malzahar endured. What lay in the darkness below brushed against the soul of the broken seer, only for an instant, and yet its strange and unknowable energies saturated his mind completely. The lone figure that eventually strode out of Acadia was no longer just a man, but something greater. Malzahar had seen in the abyss an end to all the suffering he had witnessed in his mortal lifetime. He realized the future he had believed hidden from him all this time was in fact a vision of his true calling, to accelerate the world toward inevitable oblivion. He had to return to the people and spread word of the holy nothingness that would gladly embrace them, the willing and non-believers alike. He would become the herald of the world's salvation. Among the nomads of the deep desert, he found his first disciples. Before their astonished eyes, he used his new void-given powers to rend the very earth itself, summoning chittering, nightmarish creatures to carry away any who dared to deny him. Within a matter of months, strange rumors began to travel with the merchant caravans. Rumors of men and women gladly sacrificing themselves to unseen powers, and of powerful quakes opening up the bedrock of Shurima in new fault lines hundreds of miles long. In the years since, Malzahar's legend has spread even to the northern ports, As followers of the Prophet grow in number, nearby settlers are said to experience malefic visions grasping at their hearts, and fear gives rise to superstition. Even the hardy villagers of the far wastes now make offerings of livestock to appease the voidling creatures below. There are few indeed who may tread the paths between worlds. Kassadin, the Void Walker. Kassadin started life as a lowly offcast, walking the harsh sands of the Great Sigh alongside merchant caravans to draw predators away from their more valuable goods. He survived many of these treks across the desert and began to serve less as bait and more as a guide. The foreign tongues that sought his talents, Kassadin, or whom does the desert know, often slurred their jurymen, and so he became fondly known as Kassadin in the back alleys and markets of Belgium. He spent many years exploring the ancient ruins of his homeland, making his employers exceedingly wealthy. But it wasn't until a dig near Zerima that he found a treasure of his own. He fell in love with a woman from one of the desert tribes. With his wife and newborn daughter, Kassadin settled in a small village in the rocky canyons to the south. He was on the road often, his work sometimes requiring him to accompany particularly valuable relics to some faraway sponsor. But no matter where his travels took him, Kassadin would always return with exciting tales from the world beyond. Journeying home from distant Piltover, Kassadin and his fellow caravaneers were watering their beasts at an oasis when they encountered the first terrified survivors stumbling out of the desert. They spoke of the disaster that had claimed their homes, as if the maw of the underworld itself had opened up to devour them. They had barely escaped with their lives. Fearing for his own family's safety, Kassadin left the others behind, riding hard, driving his mount almost to exhaustion. When he finally reached the place where his village had once stood, he found only shifting sand and rubble. He clawed at the debris until his hands bled, screaming out his wife and daughter's names, though no answer came. Days later, Kassadin's companions caught up to him, now just a broken and empty man weeping beneath the scorching sun. They dragged him back to Zerima, but Kassadin would go no further. For years he tried to drown his grief, reduced to little more than a vagrant, until word reached town of the Prophet. Whispers of unspeakable horrors that dwelt beneath the earth, and of sacrifices made in their name, chilled Kassadin to the bone. He knew well the legends of old Ikathia, and the fate that befell that accursed place. If the void had been deliberately drawn toward Shurima once more, then it had likely been the death of his entire village, and countless more besides. He also knew there were few, if any, who could stand against it. In that moment, Kassadin swore that he would avenge his wife and daughter by destroying this insidious prophet and the source of his abyssal power. He was a man who had made his living by finding safe paths through the most dangerous places, and resolved to arm himself with the most arcane and esoteric weapons ever known in Valorant, fused with Zonite ingenuity and blessed by Ionian spirit healers. He called in every favor he could, from scholars sword that had slain 1,000 deceivers in the latter days of the Empire. He could feel the cold pull of oblivion in its edge, but no longer had any regard for his own mortality, and nothing of his old life left to lose. Disguised in the robes of a pilgrim, more than a decade since he had last set foot anywhere near that desolate land, Kassadin made his way into Icathia. He would go where no man was ever meant to walk. He would have his vengeance, even if it killed him. Little do they know, this only helps Malzahar in shepherding the coming of the end. Whom does the desert know? By L.J. Goulding. Shurima is dying. I do not think she will rise again. The emptiness that writhes in the very bones of my homeland is a malignant, unspeakable thing. It spreads, it devours. Its merest touch is death. 1,000 deaths. 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000. Perhaps once there were some who could stand against it and hope to prevail, but no longer. I walk here, alone, in the darkest places beneath the world, and I see it with my own eyes, through the finely crafted lenses of my helm. What is seen cannot be unseen, and what is known cannot be forgotten. Not here. I am weary, so very weary. Still I walk. I can no longer feel the ground beneath me, nor the bare rock of the cavern walls. But so too am I spared the worst of the numbing winds that rise from the depths. I give thanks for that, for truly this is a chill beyond the desert's night. I have sat upon the endless plain of the Sai Faraj beneath the first moon of winter, and yet never known anything like this. It is the deep cold of the void, which the ancients, in their ignorance, might have named as their underworld, and the source of all evil in the mortal realm. The truth is worse, I think. The air itself feels wrong and unnatural, throbbing with a fierce purple unlight that pains the mind, and from the shadows that even my eyes cannot pierce, you come. 3, 4, maybe 5. It is difficult to say. 100 and more of your kind have I faced and slain. Your howls echo in the gloom, but I do not fear you, for you have already taken everything I ever had. My wife, my beloved, my daughter, our Binsiki, our little explorer. I call out their names, as I always do, to remind myself why it is that I fight. Then I raise my gauntlet. For all your teeth and your claws and your ravenous rage, you cannot defeat me. Either I will strike you down, back to the pit, or you will send me into the hereafter, and I will finally be at peace. I will be with them once more. Either way, I will win. No, you cannot defeat me, you who are Shayatin, the beasts of the last infinity. In my other hand, I clutched the stone tightly. Its foreign magic has kept me alive this long enough to delve far, far beneath the wastelands of old Icathia. It holds your corruption at bay, though at what cost to my flesh and my spirit, I cannot guess, for this smallest of trinkets now thrums in time with my own heart. That fearful rhythm is not the pulse of life, or magic, or any other wholesome thing, but of oblivion itself. Of that much I am certain. Back, beast, stay back. The nether blade snaps out from my gauntleted wrist into the air between us. Yes, yes, you know this weapon, don't you? You all remember it. Where only moments ago you hungered for my flesh, now you're wary. Now you hesitate. You circle. Those of you that have eyes cannot take them from the blade's shimmering edge. Even you must know, I think, that this thing was not made from mortal hands or mortal souls. It was made by clever magic, by men who were no longer men, and who now are nothing at all. Would you remember them too, I wonder? You screech and hiss and stamp at the uneven ground. It would be easy to imagine that you hate all living things, but you do not hate us, I think. Not truly. You do not know what hate is. Hate is the fire that burned in the immortal hearts of the god warriors when they saw your kind spilling out into the world. Hate was what drove them against you again and again, though they knew it would almost certainly be their doom. Yes, this weapon remembers you. It remembers how to end you. Horok it was that struck the first telling blow against your masters, great and mighty Horok of the ascended host, whose name shall live forever. He is the finder of hidden ways, and the one who follows after. It was Horok who first dared to face you down here, in the darkness, away from the light of the sun that had given him his strength. It was Horok who first bore the nether blade unto the void's vile heart, and it was Horok who showed his brothers and sisters how to defeat the abyss. I am no ascended hero of Shurima, no god warrior to be remembered in the grand halls of that ruined empire. I am but a man. I am a grieving father and a child of the Sai in my own time. From the dust I came, and to the dust I shall return soon enough. But not yet. For now I walk as Horok once walked, and I do this with his blade held out before. The closest of you lunges. Horned shell and razor-sharp talons graze my side as I twist away, breath rasping through the pipes in my mask. For a moment I am blind, trapped inside this meager armored suit of my own devising. Then I bring the nether blade up sharply, cleaving through what on any other creature could be called a neck. The sinuous body crashes down, and I feel the weapon's aching hunger in my sword arm, in the sourness at the back of my tongue, like the aftertaste of a scream. Who will be next? Which of you will try? The desert knows Horok. His name shall live forever. Even when he was betrayed by the tyrant, Nezuk, to his death, none would claim the bladed gauntlet from Horok's wrist. As far as the god warriors had fallen, even they could not deny that these lands might be threatened by the Voidborn once again in some unseen future, and this great weapon should be ready. This is my land. Such horrors walk here now, openly, and I cannot allow it. I will plunge this blade into the creeping nothingness beneath Shurima, as I have a dozen times before. Was it destiny? No, nothing so noble as destiny. It was fated, I think, that I knew where this thing might be found. I led the Iknebi treasure seekers to Horrocks' mausoleum on the banks of the Kalik many years ago. Back then I sought nothing more than their Biltovan gold, so that I might provide for my family. I gladly helped break open the tomb that had remained sealed for thousands of years. The nether blade was not the prize the Iknebi sought, but they deemed it valuable all the same. Some in the tribes called me mercenary, some called me a traitor. All I know is, in the strange days since then, Horrocks' mausoleum has been utterly consumed by the enemy. Were it not for those treasure seekers and the bounty they paid me, this weapon would now be lost. Like my people, my family. Unlike them, when the time came, the blade was something I could find again. Case Sai Adin. Whom does the desert know? The desert does not know you, beast. You are not welcome here. You are lost in this ancient land of gods and men. But the desert knows my name, for that is my name. Not once have I lost my way. I know exactly where I am, and how many more paces it would be to the doom of all things. I will atone for what I have done, and that which I have not, and I will defy you until the end. My appearance may frighten you, but make no mistake. I am on your side, and we fight to the bitter end. Kaisa, daughter of the void. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about the fearless hunter of the void, known as Kaisa, is how unremarkably her life began. She did not descend from tribal warriors, hardened by generations of battle, nor was she summoned from distant lands to fight the unknowable menace lurking beneath Shurima. Rather, she was just an ordinary girl, born to loving parents who called the unforgiving southern deserts their home. This was where she would spend her days playing with friends, and her nights dreaming about her place in the world. In her 10th summer, the young girl Kaisa's destiny would be changed forever. Had she been older, she might have noticed more of the unusual events that had begun to unfold in the villages. Every day, her mother urged her stay home for fear of strangers wandering the land, demanding tribute to dark powers below. Kaisa and her friends did not believe it, until one evening they came upon a pen of sacrificial goats bought from nomad herdsmen. Using the knife her father had given her on her 8th birthday, she cut their tethers and set the animals free into a nearby canyon. It seemed like a harmless prank until the unthinkable happened. The ground began to quake, flashes of light scorched the sky, and the children ran for their lives. The void had been awakened. A great rift split the bedrock, swallowing up Kaisa's village and everyone in it, leaving nothing behind but sand pierced with twisted columns as black as night. Kaisa regained consciousness to find herself trapped underground. She was filled with crippling fear, but there was still hope. She could hear the faint cries of other survivors. They called out to each other feebly, repeating their names one by one like a mantra. Sadly, by the third day, hers was the only voice left. Her friends and family were all gone. She was alone in the darkness. It was only when all seemed lost that she saw the light. She followed it down. Along the way, she found meager sustenance. Amid the debris left by the collapse were ragged water skins, rotting peaches, anything to keep starvation at bay. But eventually, Kaisa's hunger was replaced by fear once again. She found herself in a vast cavern, illuminated by an otherworldly purplish glow, and she could see she was no longer alone. Skittering creatures swarmed in the depths. The first that came for Kaisa was no bigger than her, and she clutched her knife in both hands, ready to defend herself. The voidling horror knocked her to the ground, but she drove the blade into its pulsing heart, and the two of them tumbled deeper into the abyss. The creature was seemingly dead, but its unnatural skin had taken hold upon the flesh of her arm. The dark shell tingled, but was hard as steel to the touch. In a panic, Kaisa broke her knife trying to remove it, but when the larger beasts came, she used it as a shield to make her escape. Soon enough, she realized the shell was becoming part of her. As her daily struggle to survive drew out into years, this second skin grew with her, and so too did her resolve. Now she had more than hope. She had a plan. Fight hard, stay alive, find a way back. She was transformed from frightened girl to fearless survivor, from prey to predator. For almost a decade, she has lived between two worlds in an attempt to keep them apart. The void hungers to consume not only the scattered villages of Shurima, but the whole of Runeterra. She will not allow that to happen. Though she has slain countless void constructs, she understands that many of the people she protects would see her as a monster herself. Indeed, her name